Thanks for listening. Welcome to The Prize Inside. The Prize Inside. A chiropractor's journey in everyday holistic health and vitality. Here, your host, Dr. Jeremy Myers, delves into the remarkable journeys of everyday people who have embraced the path to health and healing. Through his practice, Dr. Jeremy encounters inspiring stories of profound transformation and the power of true healing within each of us. Stay tuned as we discuss various holistic topics and unlock the healing potential that lies within us all.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Whole Health Weekly. Tonight, we're going to discuss a few different things. This is Whole Health Weekly episode 30. So if you haven't been paying attention, I want to make sure we get that in the chat. So like if you've missed any, we're going through chiropractic principles. So there's 33 chiropractic principles. And what we're doing is kind of going through each one each week. So we're on the 33rd chiropractic principle. And then each one, we're going to bring in a holistic concept after that as well. So that'll be kind of fun. And then tonight, we always do different trending health topics that are going. I did my office manager got me my TikTok information. A lot of that has to do with, what was it? Autoimmune diseases. That was a big one that was on the TikTok world. And the other one was colon cleanses. So we'll talk a lot about those in that time frame. Before we get going, though, I want to make sure if you enjoy these, I'm up to like 51 people on Rumble. But subscribe to our channel. It's the Prize Inside channel. Here is the link. It's going to be in the comments area. So that should go in there. And then if you enjoy podcast wise, because I think that's where I get, which is crazy because I don't think I have what did they say? The face for radio and the voice for TV. For being deaf and mute, something like that. So, but my podcast audience is pretty good. So I get a lot of people listen. So I'm pretty excited about that. I really enjoy doing this as well, regardless of how many. My goal is to hit a bunch of people. I have no like goal in mind, but I'm going to do this for a long time because I like to talk and this stuff is awesome. So what we're going to, and also the podcast one, I'm going to put that link in there. The podcast is on any podcast thing that you can think of. Look up The Prize Inside, a chiropractor's journey. It is on, iTunes, Spotify, all those kind of things as well. So with that said, let's get into, I got a couple of things I want to get into tonight before we start the health news articles. But the first one is the 30th chiropractic principle. Okay. So, and we'll walk through this. If you haven't seen them, if you subscribe to the Rumble channel and you see the Whole Health Weekly episodes, in the first part of each episode, we go through each chiropractic principle. When you do it this way, it might sound a little strange, but when you put them all together, it's, hi, Julie. Oh, nice. So Julie's saying, so Julie had a pretty massive wrist injury and she is using some red light therapy, which is fantastic. I need to do a whole thing on why that is so good. So red light therapy, we have a cold laser, which is actually, they're completely different things. But they have the same kind of concept. Red light therapy is super safe. It it increased cellular healing in a big way. So it's one of those that it's out there, and I've seen some really, really cool things. So remember that red light therapy, and pay for one. Don't get the real cheap stuff. Get a good red light therapy, and then you could see some good benefits. Julie, in the comments sometime, tell me how it's going with that, and if you notice a big difference, because I am super curious, because red light, laser, all those things are amazing technologies. And I think we're on the cusp. One of the reasons I'm doing this show is because I feel it. I feel like people are ready. People are ready for some technologies that may or may not have been around for a long time, that are now coming into Main Street. And that might be one of I'm going to try to get him. This guy I don't know, but I'm going to try to get some more interviews. So understand, Whole Health Weekly this might be the place where I do a bunch of like the interviews I love to do. So I am working on that diligently, probably in the winter time where people have time. But with that said, let's talk about, where was I going? Oh, the 30th chiropractic principle. So let's do that. Okay. So the 30th, now remember, this is written in 1927. Okay. So some of the wording is a little off for it. But it all rings true today. The causes of dis-ease or disease, the causes of dis-ease are interference with the transmission of innate forces which causes incoordination or dis-ease. So interference with the transmission of the innate forces causes an incoordination or dis-ease. Excuse me. So what that is getting at, and it's a very, very big deal. Innate intelligence is what runs our entire body. We have all these cells within us, right? And those cells, based on us we are built by a bigger force, God, right? God, or, those kind of things. And each piece of the matter is actually intelligent. That's how we understand what life is. Okay. So if there's life, there is intelligence. So each cell of our body has this intelligence within us. When that intelligence is able to communicate perfectly throughout our body, so think of a great example is really a pinched nerve. So somebody has a pinched nerve, basically on the medical terms, right? That communication is lost. Therefore, muscles start not working right. Nerves start getting numb, like those kind of things. So think of that as like the interference to the pathway, but it's much, much bigger than that. It's the interference to the entire system. You can have interferences with the communication. So how do these interferences happen? One is the chiropractic way, right? So you have, a spot, like when your spine is working properly, you have perfect communication throughout the entire body. When you have that communication going in the right direction, your body is able to communicate to every single cell of your body, right? Now, with that said, so there's three things that cause this interference. We call it thoughts, right? You can have mental situations, stresses, those kind of things that imbalance your system, which allow that communication to get altered. And then when that communication gets altered, it can cause you to have not disease, but dis-ease, right? Disease is a disease. It's a condition. It's something like that. Dis-ease is, let's say, you don't feel right, or maybe you don't have the true diagnosis of something, but something's off. Think that way. Dis-ease is all the time. We're in a perpetual time of trying to get our bodies into a state of ease where everything's communicating. Okay. So that one's a pretty good chiropractic principle, I think. So dis-ease, they wrote that in 1927, guys. And you'll hear podcaster, like whole health and holistic podcasters, they like, I really believe that they scour the chiropractic world of the amount of philosophy that we've had for 100 years. And then they use it, which is fine, because some of them are way better podcasters than like myself, or, those kind of things. But as you go, like understanding what dis-ease is. You're lacking ease. The communication of your body is not working right. Why? Thoughts, toxins, or trauma, right? So all of those three things: thoughts, toxins, trauma. So if you read your body, or your entire focus in your health is making sure that our thoughts are good, we get as many toxins out of our body as we can, and we don't cause ourselves trauma as best as we can avoid trauma, right, Julie? So you try to avoid trauma, but that sometimes it finds you. So there's that part. But the more we can do that, the better off our health goes. Okay. So I wanted to do one other thing, and I thought it was really cool. So bear with me because it's kind of off topic. I got to get there. Let's see. This is really cool. Rachel sent me sent me something, and I want to read it because I really think it's applicable for who we are as a 1% tribe. And it was just a nice Facebook post, but I absolutely loved this concept. Now it's going to be completely off of health in a little bit, but it's not. And you'll see why. And it's just a story. This is from Facebook. That's called Fabulous Things Never Seen Before. Fabulous Things Never Seen Before. It's like a little group. So this is a story. Ready? So when 79-year-old George retired, he didn't buy a golf club or a hammock. He hung a handmade sign in his garage window. Broken things? Bring them here. No charge. Just tea and talk. His neighbors in the faded mill town of Maple Grove thought he'd lost it. Who fixes stuff for free? Grumbled the barber. But George had a reason. His wife, Ruth, had spent decades repairing torn coats and cracked picture frames for anyone who knocked. Waste is a habit, she'd say. Kindness is the cure. She died the year before, and George's hands, wasn't ready for that part. George's hands itched to mend what she left behind. The first visitor was 8-year-old Mia, dragging a plastic toy truck with a missing wheel. Dad says we can't afford a new one, she mumbled. George rummaged through his toolbox, humming, and an hour later, the truck rolled again. This time with a bottle cap for a wheel and a stripe of silver duct tape. Now it's custom, he winked. Mia left smiling, but her mother lingered. Can you fix a resume? She asked. I've been stuck on the couch since the factory closed. By noon, George's garage buzzed. A widow brought a shattered clock. My husband wound it every Sunday. A teen carried a leaky backpack. George fixed them all, but he didn't work alone. Retired teachers proofread resumes. A former seamstress stitched torn backpacks. Even Mia returned, handing him a jar of jam. Mom says, thanks for the job interview. Then came the complaint. Unlicensed business, snapped the city inspector. You're violating zoning laws. Maple Grove's mayor, which is crazy. That's why the story got me. The Maple Grove's mayor, a man with a spreadsheet heart, demanded that George shut down. The next morning, 40 townsfolk stood on George's lawn, holding broken toasters, torn quilts, and protest signs. Fix the law, not just stuff. A local reporter filmed the segment. Is kindness illegal? The mayor caved, sort of. If you want to fix things, do it downtown, he said. Rent the old firehouse, but no guarantees. The firehouse became a hive. Volunteers gutted it, painted its sunshine yellow, and dubbed it Ruth's Hub. Plumbers taught plumbing. Teenagers learned to do socks. A baker swapped muffins for repaired microwaves. The town's waste dropped by 30%. But the real magic was conversations. A lonely widow fixed a lamp while a single dad patched a bike tire. Where am I at? They talked about Ruth, about loss, about hope. Last week, George found a note in his mailbox. It was Mia, now 16, interning at a robotics lab. You taught me to see value in broken things. I'm building a solar power prosthetic arm. P.S. This truck still runs. Today, 12 towns across the state have fix-it hubs. None charge money. All serve tea. Funny, isn't it, how a man with a screwdriver can rebuild a world? Let's let this story reach more hearts. And that, my friends, is what I wanted to do tonight, because that is amazing. Oh, man, that was so good. Because once you start understanding that this world of chaos that we've had since probably COVID, I would say, the amount of the disconnect that we've really had has been off the charts. And part of it is why people are hurting, why people's health goes down. It's not just about necessarily, learning the next best thing in holistic or herbals or anything. When you lose community, you lose everything. And so what I would suggest, especially for my retired people, they know if you're close to retirement and you're my patient, you get a lecture. You get a lecture on, I want to know what you're doing. I want to know what groups you're going to be involved in. Even by guys that are like, oh, I'm just going to sit on the couch. No, you are not. You are not. And I will tell them why. When you've done this for 25 years and you see a patient work for, I had a patient, I'll tell you this right now. First year of practice, wonderful man, worked 7 days a week at one of the cereal factories. Worked 40 years for 7 days a week for 10-hour days. He was ready to retire. He was excited. And so me and him, he'd come get adjusted once a month on the dot. He'd just do it, make sure his spine's working. And he was very healthy for 40 years at 7 days a week. Well, then, and I'm a young doctor at the time, so I don't pay attention to a lot of that stuff. And so he goes, man, I cannot wait. May is the day. I remember the month even. He goes, May is it. I'm getting out, and my first 3 weeks, I'm going to do absolutely nothing. I'm like, well, sir, if anybody in this world deserves to do nothing, it's you. 40 years at 7 days a week. That's why I always say, like, chiropractic, like, everybody's like, oh, you work a lot for a chiropractor. I do not. I promise you, there's people working way more than I am. So, but it's perspective, right? So that's how I look at it. But this man, and unfortunately, what shocked me as a young doctor is a man that made 40 years, 7 days a week, 3 weeks in, he died 2 weeks in because he stopped. And I don't want that to happen. So you see it and you just don't want that to happen. And part of it is you lose your community. The reason he stayed around, for that long is because of that community, right? So you have to make sure that you're doing that. Oh man, my workout was rough today. Dear Lord. And it was kind of hot out, so I don't know. But anyway, so sorry about that. But yeah, so the idea that you need community, I'm going to do a whole talk on that, and the studies and those kind of things. Don't isolate yourself. Force yourself. Hardest thing in the world, maybe, to actually get into a community and not isolate yourself and become a hermit and not do things, right? Do things for your community. That story was glorious. A guy just doing that. And I'm going to put some stories together on people that have done that. The people that I've met in my life that have done that for years, and you don't age. It's like crazy. I'm hoping to get Judy on here. Judy's is late. I think she's 84, and you couldn't even tell. She belongs to like 4 service clubs. Is pretty much the person that runs all of them. Like she's the one that comes in and asks me for, this fundraiser, that fundraiser. And it's just wild, like how much she hasn't changed, and it's because she dives into this community. So So I know that was a huge side piece. Oh man. Yeah. Thank you, Julie, for that. She said she said it was a great story. And she just started that red light therapy, so we'll get to know. But the story is important because that helps your thoughts, right? It helps everything. And community matters, right? And so I have a tendency to become a hermit after, chiropractic is over because I get to hang out with so many people. But that's my tribe usually, like that's why, when they say retirement, I'm like, what does that mean? That kind of thing. So anyway, so let's get into the health trends of this week. So the TikTok news, let's talk about that real quick. So the TikTok news that Gina brought up, because these are what trends. Okay. So what'll happen in AI and social media world is that you're going to get blasted. You're going to get blasted with whatever they think is going to be your trend. Now, these could change per individual person, right? So what they do is they can almost read your brain. Maybe they can, who knows? But they can almost read your brain on what you're thinking. So then you get these health topics that come by, these holistic ones, and they throw that story in your face, leading you down the path. And so TikTok, Gina's was saying that, what was it? Oh, autoimmune disease. So let's talk about that. There's a big thing on like what causes autoimmune diseases. And if you're a holistic person in your brain, you can understand what that means. Autoimmune is simply one thing. Autoimmune means that the immune system is losing its ability to be controlled. Okay. Which, if we go back to like principle 30, it's the lack of communication of something causes your immune system to not work properly. Okay. And so with that, it causes dis-ease. So lack of communication. Why would your immune cells lose their mind and then start attacking other parts of your body? Because that's what autoimmune is. There's autoimmune in the joints. There's autoimmune in your stomach. There's autoimmune in your skin. Those are all different places where these immune cells are literally kind of attacking your body as if it's an enemy. Okay. That's what autoimmune is about. So you have several classifications of different autoimmune diseases. And really, your goal, especially in an autoimmune disease, is why is the disconnect happening? And one of the big ones for us is gut health, right? So the gut microbiome is a big one. I've seen spinal health actually work really, really well for autoimmune type situations. When you start taking away the lack of communication, right? We make our body communicate better throughout the entire body. A lot of these autoimmune diseases will calm down, be at bay, or you might actually see some kind of like reversal on it. And so a lot of times that's what autoimmune means. Autoimmune literally means you've lost control of your immune system. Now you have to figure out why, right? So if you have irritable bowel syndrome, autoimmune disease, right? You have Crohn's, autoimmune. They're not much different. It's just whatever immune cells are going crazy at the time and what kind of condition there's there. So you have this gut health situation. So if your gut bacteria is off, right? So if your gut bacteria is not working right, then when you eat food, I think food allergy is actually autoimmune disease. So when you eat food and your gut bacteria does not recognize that food as something that's food, it's now an enemy, right? So when we have that food that's an enemy, now your immune system loses its mind and attacks it because your gut bacteria is off and it didn't recognize it, right? So that communication is key throughout everything. I love it. I have a few patients that we've been going through gut detox stuff. So if you're ever interested, reach out. It's been an amazing journey with those people. On top of the chiropractic, on top of, a lot of these different things. So that's what an autoimmune disease is. The other question she had on TikTok, so we'll talk about that one, was colon cleanses. So I tried to look up like what the fashionable colon cleanse is. Now, I'm going to say in cleansing world, a colon cleanse is not a bad idea almost ever, right? I wouldn't do it all the time, and it depends on what you're using, but a colon cleanse can be super valuable. Now, the problem is when people overdo it, or let's say their gut has a bad microbiome, right? So we have bad gut bacteria, we're not eating correctly, or, those kind of things already. And then we do a colon cleanse. It can cause some problems. I mean, you're not going to feel great if you do a colon cleanse. There's a stuff called psyllium fiber, right? Psyllium fiber is kind of like what's in a lot of your medical bowel movers, right? So it's the bowel movement stuff. And psyllium's interesting because it's basically, if you just psyllium fiber, I had one family farm. I haven't met them in a long time, or seen them in a long time, but they used to sell stuff to all kinds of chiropractors, but they would sell just the psyllium, right? And so the psyllium kind of creates basically a bullet that would go through your colon. And that's what, the bowels movers are doing, is using the psyllium, pushing the material out through the gut. And that's why it works so good as a bowel mover. Some of you have had like a colonoscopy or something. So I always smile. I'm like, whatever they use, it's definitely not good for you. We know that, but it works. Because they don't even have to pretend that the colonoscopy, whatever drink you're getting is going to work. It will work, and it'll cleanse you pretty good. And most people feel pretty good afterwards. I recommend them highly. I think colon cleanses is one of the best moves you possibly can do. Trying to be you don't have to be as specific on it, but just cleaning out things of, wasted material gets you kind of going in the right direction. So with me, holistically, colon cleanse, I absolutely would. I wouldn't do it all the time. You don't have to do a lot of that stuff, but you will feel a lot better a lot of the times. Okay. So if you have any additional questions on that, put in the chat or comments too, just to make sure I didn't miss anything on the colon cleanse. So now I'm going to go into trends of the week as far as social media, and then we'll go into the cool articles, holistic ones from Dr. Mercola. So here's mainstream media health topics so far. We've done that one. I saw this one that was interesting. Chronic cannabis use and health risks. New research links chronic cannabis use to endothelial dysfunction, a risk factor for cardiovascular disease, and receiving significant coverage. It intersects with social media discussions on cannabis and for mental health, where mainstream media emphasizes the need for a balanced reporting to counter overly positive influencer narratives. I can agree with that, because it's one of those things. One of the reasons I got into herbalism was because I wanted to prove that cannabis is it's not the evil player, right? It's better than some, but it's not as great as people want it to be. And the reason is because you're killing off gut bacteria. I have no science on this, by the way. They haven't come up with that yet, but they will. I guarantee, give me 3 years and somebody be like, science says chronic cannabis smokers kill off their gut bacteria. That's why they can't eat anything. That's why they're nauseous all the time. And that's why they keep having to smoke more marijuana. I was like, yes, that's what happens. The gut bacteria gets messed up really bad because there's a couple of reasons. One, when people smoke the weed, there's no filter. And because there's no filter on that, I believe that smoke is coming in and literally damaging the gut. When it's damaging the gut like that, you kill off your gut bacteria. Why do you see that with and this is chronic cannabis use? There's a little difference between like recreational cannabis or whatever, right? That is just like alcohol, right? I'm not going to fight you on, a beer a month or whatever. And the same thing with, recreational marijuana, where you're not doing it all the time, but you start smoking that stuff 4 to 5 times a day. That's the same thing as taking 4 or 5 shots of whiskey a day. That's not going to be good for you in the long run, right? It's obvious. But there's a lot of people that push it because they're like, it's better than opioids. It's better than depression meds. I go, sometimes I beg to differ, because if you're doing 5 to 6, smoking 5 to 6 packs or whatever weed tokes a day, and that means you're running from something, right? You have to live in that world. And a couple things that happen is some people are so nauseous if they're not high that they have to smoke weed to feel better. Okay. That is gut bacteria problems. That is. And so you smoke more to not be nauseous, and you go, and you can see you're going to get skinnier. Your metabolism, your muscle system will go down. And this is just about, right, the chronic weed smokers. Now, does it happen all the time? No. I got some people that do it, with no problem, but they're not the chronic ones. And you got to be careful of that. Or if you had a bad gut bacteria in the beginning and then you start smoking it, you just made it worse, right? So now you're talking about major chronic issues. So just remember that as you go. You hear a lot of people touting it like, ooh, it's better than this big pharma drug or whatever. But it's also a problem when that happens, because yes, it's probably better, but at the same time, it can be just as addictive, even though they say it's not. But if every time you're nauseous, you smoke and you're not, it becomes an addiction. Okay. And mental health can be an issue there. So, and that's just a soapbox Jeremy thing. I have no evidence to support, like this stuff. I don't put enough time into it because I've seen it enough in real life to understand that, it's a good thought process. Am I going to stop somebody from recreational? No, that's not, that's not what it's all about. Just understanding what you're getting into and understanding, like, you do anything multiple times in a day. If I ate 7 Twinkies, right, throughout the day, that's going to be a problem. All right. So just remember that. All right. That was a pretty good one. Okay. All right. Let's go down to the other one. Let's see. Okay. So that was it for that one. And then, okay. So now that was about the only thing this week, guys, that I saw that was like real trendy on the regular, just trending topics, right? So when we've gone over quite a few of the other ones, so I don't want to beat a dead horse on that part. So we're going to go into Dr. Mercola's awesome articles, and we're going to break those down because he's got a lot of good holistic ones this week. I'm really happy about them. Okay, so let's talk about, let's do this one. Ooh, I know everybody's going to be so excited. Krill oil. Oh, this article's by Dr. Mercola. Krill oil, oh man, I'm going to screw that word up. Attenuates fatty liver and oxidative stress and obesity. Researchers were stunned when this marine oil, krill oil, slashed liver and belly fat, boosted fat-burning hormones, and outperformed cholesterol drugs without side effects. Whoa. I might be carrying some krill oil, ladies and gentlemen. Krill oil lowered liver fat, deep belly fat, and triglyceride levels in obese mice, showing it helps reverse the core drivers of fatty liver disease, which is huge because, like, right now, fatty liver disease, even if you're not a non-alcoholic, is growing because of our crappy food process. The amount of processed foods we eat has caused us to have these fatty liver diseases. Krill oil reduced oxidative stress, which is the stress on a cell that causes you to have major problems, if that makes sense, and activated natural antioxidant enzymes, helping cells protect themselves from damage caused by fat overload. Krill oil improves insulin sensitivity by lowering insulin levels and boosting adenopectin, a hormone that helps your body burn fat and use sugar properly. This is a pretty cool article. So this is one reason I do it, because it's like, whoa, kind of the newest stuff out there. So unlike fish oil, krill oil's omega-3s are bound to what they call phospholipids, making them easier to absorb and more effective at targeting inflammation and fat buildup. Krill oil outperformed a prescription cholesterol drug in several key markers and did so without side effects, offering a safer way to restore metabolic health. So, while I'm on that subject, let me look. I have this supplement. It's not really a supplement. It's not a company, but what's cool, let me do this. It's called Full Script. I'll put if you guys are tech savvy, I'm going to put this is what that little QR code is, okay, in the corner here. So if you know how to like take a picture of that it'll go to this site. Full Script is something that is amazing. It is a site that's just like Amazon. But what happens is all the supplements in here are vetted. The way I found this was Dr. Lowdog, my herbal coach. She is on the actual board of this. So remember that krill oil. Yeah. So let me look. And so this has 30,000 supplements in it. So it's pretty awesome. Let me look. All right. So krill oil. Oh, that's a good one. All right. Let me see if I can. Oh, come on. Let me have a little. Oh, if I could get a link, I could get a link for you guys. Let's see. This would be cool to put in there. No. What does that mean? Oh, okay. Dang, I don't know if that's going to work. Okay, so I'm going to try to put it in the chat, but I don't know if this is going to work. So I apologize if it doesn't. But there is krill oil. Boom. It's in this Full Script. If you can take a picture of that QR code, if you can't, there is that. Oh, do I have it somewhere. I used to have my actual thread somewhere on like Full Script where you could just write it down. But anyway, so the idea is the krill oil is fantastic. I'm going to start carrying it more often. That is an amazing thing. I had not known about it helping with cholesterol at all. So that's pretty amazing. So that little script thing I gave you, if you copy and paste it, if you're watching in the comments, then you probably could get into that Full Script and, buy it. But it just works like that. It's like an Amazon of supplements, but all the stuff you're getting is good. Okay. So that was an awesome one. Krill oil for the win. All right. Okay. Let's do, there's so many. Okay. This one I really liked. So let's go here. Curcumin and piperine. Okay. So we're going to talk about what those are. Together with each other improves sepsis outcomes. Okay. So, and we'll talk about that as well. Curcumin has been extensively reviewed for its various health benefits. Think of turmeric when we're talking about curcumin, okay, guys? But did you know that it makes even better by adding a compound, piperine, which is pepper, right? So it's your pepper and turmeric together. Combination makes a really nice anti-inflammatory powerhouse. Okay. That's why you see it. You'll see that in a lot of supplements. So you'll see like turmeric, ginger with piperine in there. And that piperine is something that really enhances turmeric out. So remember that when you're looking at your turmeric supplements for that anti-inflammatory. So sepsis, this is a very scary infection. It affects over 1.7 million adults annually, and it causes 350,000 deaths per year. It is characterized by an overwhelming immune response leading to widespread inflammation and organ failure. An Iranian study of 66 ICU patients showed curcumin plus this piperine reduced the inflammation markers by like 40% in 7 days. Whoa. So a meta-analysis revealed curcumin alone dramatically increased survival rates up to 90% and protected multiple organs, including lungs, liver, and kidneys. Adding the black pepper, okay, so adding the black pepper to something they call golden milk. Golden milk's a recipe that you can look up. It has a lot of turmeric, a lot of really good things, and they make it taste pretty good. It's a traditional turmeric-based drink, okay? It increases the bioavailability of that turmeric, which is the curcuminoids that are the curcumin that's in there, by 2,000%. But so taking a turmeric with the black pepper is going to increase the effectiveness by 2,000%, which is huge. And so what that is think about this. So if it helps with sepsis that well, okay. So if it helps with sepsis that much, when you go in for surgery, when you go in for any kind of procedure, wouldn't you want your body to be in the best place? I always recommend, if you're going in for any kind of surgery, garlic for a couple weeks, right? At least prior to surgery. And now you could do turmeric. They call it golden milk. So look that up and you can see the combination. It's like powdered turmeric. I think it's in warm milk, if I remember right. But then you add the piperine or the pepper. Okay, so the pepper activates that turmeric a lot. And so if it's going to help with sepsis, give your body the best fighting chance. What else could do that? What else should you do before surgeries? No sugar. Zero fake sugar. So eat very, very clean before you go in, and your chances of the sepsis go down dramatically. So remember that. So that's a pretty good one. I thought curcumin and piperine together, the bioavailability is what you're going after. Turmeric itself, you have to take a lot of it. And then my patients that have taken it or have had that recommendation from me, you have to take like a ton of turmeric in the beginning. And then because it sits and it doesn't digest well, it only digests really well with fat, like fats from meat and, those kind of things. So what happens is your body has to build it up and then use it slowly. It's kind of like I tell people, it's like oil in an oil tank. You have to build up your turmeric. That's why people don't respond to turmeric, because they don't do it right. So they have to take a therapeutic dose or bigger in the beginning, like 3 or 4 days of like heavy turmeric use. Once it gets into your body, now you can do the 1 to 2 that they recommend on the bottle. Right. So I recommend way above that, right, in the beginning. And then you start scaling it down because now it's built up in your system. The problem is everybody goes, I tried 1 turmeric and it didn't work. Well, yeah, exactly. It's not going to work because it's not going to digest and it's way too little. So you have to build it up first. Okay. So I thought that would be a good topic anyway, because there's a lot of good turmeric, ginger, bromelain supplements out there, and that was a good one. Okay, so let's go on to. I'll do a negative one. All right, and we're going to talk about this ultra processed foods, which is what standard American diet basically. So ultra processed foods increase psoriasis risk and worsen inflammation. Okay. People with the highest consumption of ultra processed foods had a 23% higher risk of developing psoriasis compared to those who ate at the least, based on a 12-year study with 121,000 participants, replacing just 5% of unprocessed foods. I'm sorry, the ultra processed foods with unprocessed. Just 5% of their diet, you just switched. It lowered the psoriasis risk by 14%. If you did up to 20% of your diet you replace with good food, you got up to 18%. So that is a huge prevention strategy. So yes, we may not get away with all perfectly unprocessed foods. It's not going to happen. There's too many out there. However, doing a part of it, making sure that one of your meals is completely unprocessed, can make a huge difference if you're suffering with psoriasis or what was it? What was the other one? Oh, inflammation in general, autoimmune diseases especially. Seed oils really have been the bigger contributor to a lot of this stuff. We deep fry and all kinds of garbage, and that stuff has led to this chronic inflammation a lot of times. So it's more definitely, if you can get away from the deep frying aspect, you're doing yourself a good favor. Okay, so that one was a kind of a negative one. It sucks, but it could help somebody with psoriasis. So that's the one I wanted to do. And then we got this one. This is another article by Dr. Mercola. I'm going to try to remember. If I forget to say the name, it's an article by Dr. Mercola. That's how many he does. This powerful ancient herb offers impressive benefits. Used in 1406. 1406 in Chinese medicine. This is called the jiagulan. Enhances stamina, lowers cholesterol, and supports metabolism, earning it the nickname the immortality herb. When an oxygen radical absorbance capacity value 8 times higher than green tea. Let me put this in the chat. It's JIA. OGUN. And I'll look on full script. So this is the herb they're talking about. And then it's a big Chinese medicine one. Let me see if you can get it. GIA. Yep, you can get it. Yep. They call it a liver detox in there. Okay. So that's pretty cool. GIA. Yeah, so you can get it as a supplement anywhere. So this one's a pretty good article because I haven't heard of this herb necessarily. We'll call it Jiao Gulan. We'll call it that. Jiao Gulan activates the AMP, which is 5-adenosine monophosphate, activates the protein kinase of your body's energy switch to enhance insulin sensitivity, block fat storage, and support cholesterol clearance, making it an effective ally in weight and blood sugar control. So it could be one. Just be careful. We don't know it. So I would say maybe if you're thinking about it, ask your doctor and we can do some research. There's some good things out there. Just make sure you're not taking certain drugs that might do something. Because it's a new one, I would say just make sure if you're taking any medication, you're talking to your doctors about any of these things. This herb detoxifies the liver, improves circulation, and lowers inflammation through different flavor compounds, offering relief for conditions like fatty liver, high blood pressure, and chronic inflammation. Studies show this Gulan can shrink tumors, block cancer cell growth, and boost immunity while sparing healthy tissue. Its natural compounds work across more than 30 cancer types, making it a promising adjunct therapy. So I'm not saying this is going to cure anything. It's just saying it could have the potential to reduce some tumors there. So that's kind of cool. So that's something you only hear on Whole Health Weekly, 1% Tribe on Wednesday night in the middle of the summer in Michigan. That was pretty good. So anyway, so that one, remember that one in your heart, and then I'll probably start looking into carrying it and trying it myself. And then we'll end with one. Oh, this one's a pretty good one. Okay, so this one's if you have a loved one that's suffering with a stroke. Okay, so this one's a one that no one thinks of, or something no one thinks of doing, but because some of the actual medications that I call it like miracle medications. From 25 years ago, if you said you had a stroke, the amount of damage that can happen neurologically is so different now. And now they've come up with great medications that literally it like reverses a ton of stuff. So this is a good one for just you because you don't need a lot of information on this one, but you can help the stroke victim. Talking therapy shows promise as an effective treatment for stroke survivors. Depression and anxiety are common but often ignored after stroke, making recovery harder and increasing the risk of long-term decline. A large NHS study found that talking therapy helped 71% of stroke survivors improve their mental health, with nearly half fully recovering. Starting therapy within 6 months of a stroke gives you a much better chance at full recovery and lowers the risk of getting worse. Melatonin and methylene blue, which probably you've heard a lot about, help protect brain cells during a stroke by limiting oxidative damage and preserving energy production. Ginkgo biloba, which is a nice herb, really good, can show promise for improving cognitive function after a stroke when used early, giving your brain more support to rebuild. So what they're saying is, if you have a loved one like that had suffered through something like that, talking, because a lot of times when you go through a stroke, the last thing a stroke person wants to do is actually talk because they're frustrated. Their ego, it's not really their ego, it's just the frustration of being able to do something to not is huge. But if you can say, listen, this is going to be good, this is therapy for you, and then you just kind of constantly keep talking all the time, what'll happen is 71% you can see an improvement in. And that's something you don't need to be a physical therapist or a doctor to do, especially if it's your loved one, because everybody wants to do something for their loved ones, right? And this one could be one of those situations. So that one was really good. And then our final topic, I always like to leave on one cool chiropractic research article because they don't make the mainstream news. So too bad for you. You're going to be. I really liked this one's kind of cool. And we haven't had a lot going on because we don't have whatever bazillion dollars or whatever you need to run a study in the United States. So it's always fun watching. The hardest part probably of chiropractic and holistic is like when people can make, when there's a certain companies that can make 20 billion on a $1 product. That gives a lot of open leeway to make sure that you're paying for the highest research available in the land, right? And that's frustrating. It's frustrating because that's where capitalism kind of sucks, is because that's what moves the needle in research, unfortunately, is what the money says. And until we get out of that somehow, don't ask me how we would do that. I think it's going to stay that same way. But the one that I wanted to bring up, because I'm hoping our VA gets stronger and stronger in this. Back in 2016, before that, military vets, retired and active, they had zero chiropractic coverage pretty much. So they had to, when they came out to see a chiropractor off campus of the VA, they had zero chiropractic coverage, which was insane. For me to even say it now is still insane. And to have them directed is still kind of insane to me, where the regular individual never has to worry about that. But anyway, when they started introducing back in 2016, late 2017, they introduced chiropractic as these guys, the vets could get access to, let's say, 6 to 12 visits in a short time frame. Once these vets, these active and retired military vets, started getting care, there was across the entire military, not just in one little location, 20% reduction in opioids in like months. Okay. And so that was just the chiropractic side. They also wanted to introduce massage and acupuncture. Now, one of the big fights is always going to be you have this big giant veterans association that wants to keep their budget within their little house, right? And so they don't want to give access necessarily to the outside community care. They're trying though, and I give them that, but at the same time, they make it really clunky where they really wouldn't have to. You'd almost say, just give them 12, just give them whatever, right? But that's a whole situation. But a lot of times they started doing that, but a 20% reduction within 6 months, that's huge because the opioids are not helping anyone. They've always hurt everybody. They're always addictive. They always will be. Well, you start a 19-year-old on opioids instead of, getting his spine realigned and he's feeling good just with nothing, that's a big difference between those two treatments, right? So that's what's neat. There was a chiropractic study. Chiropractic care reduces opioid prescriptions. A 2025 study in the Journal of General Internal Medicine found that the Veterans Health Administration, patients receiving chiropractic care for low back pain had lower opioid use and fewer opioid-related adverse events. Another study showed a 90% decrease in odds of early and long-term opioid use when chiropractors were the initial providers for back pain. Oh, yell this to the people. Let them try the chiropractic thing. It doesn't work every time, I'm sure. There's some major low back situations out there. I'm not saying that. Why wouldn't you try it? It's like wild. It's sitting right there. That's 2025. Now we have the info though. And so my hope is I can get in front of a lot of people and like loudmouths like me could maybe help my young chiropractors in the world go, listen, my military vets, but if it's doing that for the military vets, guys, what's it doing for you in your life? That's the difference, right? If you're on an opioid, try it. Chiropractic is one of those beautiful things that could change your game. So with that said, guys, I hope you enjoyed tonight. I was hoping not too squirrely and all over the place. I'm sorry about not being able to for my podcasters. That herb I was talking about is spelled JIAOGULAN. So that is a Chinese herb to look up. JIAOGULAN. So I apologize for that. The ones that are on the comments, make sure you're like and subscribe to the Rumble channel. I do have a YouTube channel. It's under Jeremy Myers or Jeremy and Rachel. So you can look there, whatever you guys like. Facebook's great too. I can see all the comments when you come in. With that said, I'll see you Sunday night at 8:30 for 1% Tribe, where this week we went over wrist. So it might be good vibrations this weekend. Or good thoughts. So I'll be working on that. And you guys have a great rest of your week. Enjoy this beautiful weather. Thanks.